Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Grain Feed, brought to you by EverAg. This is your weekly news feed for all things grain and all things feed. Each week we bring you updates on the markets with unique perspectives from an amazing team of analysts with the intention of helping dairy and livestock producers manage their risk. I'm your host, Jim Matthews, reporting from Arizona. We are in Tempe here for the UDA annual meeting. It has been a pleasure so far. Really looking forward to the festivities this evening where Mr. Phil Plourd will be the keynote speaker, and we're really looking forward to what he has to tell the crowd. But let's take a look at what he has to say here on the show. Let's listen to Phil. Okay, we are here with Phil Plourd. Phil, I believe you're the keynote speaker this evening at the UDA annual meeting.
Yeah, I don't know who they couldn't get, but here I am. Delighted actually to have the opportunity.
Well, we're excited to see you at work as always. Always a pleasure. Phil, what's your take on the dairy markets here this week as you head into your speech tonight? What have you been thinking about the most?
You know, I think that we're in a marketplace where supply is a little short, and if there's downside to come, it's going to be that supply gets better. I think demand is still not so great, and I think that's a hurdle. I'm bored with the story. Like, we keep coming back to this and that, and then demand's not that good. And there's still not great demand news.
Phil, anything that we could be or should be watching for in the dairy markets here over the next couple of weeks as we wrap up the first half of January, really yesterday and today? What's going forward for the rest of this month?
I think European milk production, and they had this foot and mouth disease case in water buffalo in Germany. And while it could be nothing, it could be something. So it's one of those edgy stories that you got to keep an eye on mostly from a dairy export perspective from Germany and Europe. Other than that, I think we're watching these cheese plant startups and seeing how they're unfolding. We're starting to see that some of these things are rolling a little bit more for real in terms of producing number one cheese. And so the cheese capacity story we've been talking about for a year, we are starting to see some of that momentum, kind of creep into the picture with a little more vigor.
Okay, Phil. Well, thank you very much for your insights, and we are looking forward to seeing you at the dinner this evening. Looking forward to your speech.
Want to see a loud applause, please? You might be the only ones.
I'm good at being loud, so I can help there. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, we are here in Tempe, Arizona, with Senior Dairy Market Advisor, Broker Agent, Mr. Ryan Yonkman. Yonks, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man.
We've had a lot of time down here in Arizona over the last several years, if not longer. A lot of changes in this industry, but I think a lot of positive things to report to and to talk about as well. So what do you think's been happening down here in Arizona as of late? What's been on everyone's mind?
I would say outside the classic Phoenix sprawling into people's backyards and the water issues, as Phil said, things have been pretty ho-hum in a good way, not just here in Arizona, but the dairy industry over the last really year plus, especially for out here where you've got that class 4 exposure. It's been a pretty solid run. And so we just kind of continue to look at 2025. With the way it sits right now, we've got a profitable curve. And so guys are just carefully carving this thing up on the milk side with you guys on the feed side. And so kind of in a way it's been quiet, but quite good quiet. Yeah, not too much panic in the streets right now. It's been a nice little ride.
Yeah, and we were talking with Phil here earlier. He's going to provide his keynote and market update here this evening. What are you looking forward to as we move, into 25? We've got the big inauguration day coming up through this 3-day weekend. A lot of talk over how it's going to affect trade. What else is impacting this business? What are you thinking here for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, it's hard not to believe these next couple months aren't going to be just littered with volatility for the most part. We've traded a pretty narrow range. I mean, milk's been between 19 and 22 bucks for a bit. It's been great. When you look at the global setup, we're kind of in this interesting spot where we're a premium on powder, we're a premium on cheese. Historically, that's not something that favors our ability to stay here, but Phil's going to talk about the milk tightness. And so we're kind of in this weird spot where I think a lot of us are trying to assess, okay, here comes the cheese plants. Does that milk start to pick up? And if so, how do we converge with global prices, which right now looks like risk to U.S. But we're starting to see things perk up even a little bit in Europe right now. So it's kind of a mixed bag of things, but with new president and everything else, my hunch is the next few months we're going to see some movement bigger than what we've seen over the last few.
Yeah, I think volatility creates opportunity. Is that right?
That's what they say.
Let's see what we can do with it. Awesome. Thanks, Yonks. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, we are here with Jake Kingsley, Director of Feed Foundations here at EverAg. Jake, how are you today?
Doing very well, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. We've heard from Phil Plourd, and we've also heard from Ryan Yonkman, both speaking about the dairy markets. But Jake, you run our feed division here at EverAg and work with folks down here in Arizona on the feed side of things. So what's been happening in the feed markets as of late?
Well, I think a lot of folks are well aware of the volatility and particularly the upside movement in futures lately. So we've been trying to manage risk around that, capturing some opportunity for folks that have a lot of their feed bought already. Not panicking necessarily for folks that still have a good chunk of feed left to buy for the rest of this feed year. But there's opportunity generated on the basis side of cash price with these rallies in futures. And so we're seeing folks come in and clean up a lot of basis for what they need through September of this year and even get a start on some protein for October 25 through September of 26. So a few things to work on there. Kind of curious to see how this thing shapes up, as you guys had talked earlier, as we get through Inauguration Day and start to get more clarity on how international trade may be reshaped. Of course, one other thing we're watching closely is South American weather. We saw some numbers this morning with Argentina's crop conditions, both on corn and soybeans, taking a pretty heavy decline here off of what they had been over the start of their crop year, just now dipping down towards the 5-year average. So nothing dramatically bad there, but worth watching as this crop continues to mature. Brazil looks like they're in better shape. They've been catching good rains. There may be even some concern about a little bit too much rain as some of those first acres are getting close to ready to harvest. So we'll keep an eye on that and continue to take advantage of some of these opportunities.
Yeah, I think the market from a futures perspective, there's been a lot of discussion down here in Arizona over, what's next, especially after that WASDE report. We've seen the corn market heavily elevated and anxious. Since that report, I think for folks that have bought into that already, there's some opportunity to potentially put some downside protection on in case this market should ultimately pull back. We've seen managed money with a severely long position in the corn market right now, and I think everybody, once we digest what just happened with those yield numbers, all focus is now, like you said, on South America and their production, but also the demand side of this balance sheet, because the USDA did cut exports on the WASDE report last Friday. So it's going to be really interesting. Anything on the cottonseed side of this market down here in Arizona?
Yeah, we had a few questions about that this morning, and numbers are pretty firm price-wise. I think that is related to some of the stronger values in some of the other parts of the feed market. We've seen pretty good crush margins still on the veg oil side of things. Of course, you mostly think about soybean meal there, but a lot of cottonseed can be crushed to make veg oil there. And so I think there's some strength behind that. And also maybe some concern about what next year's crop may look like. Will we lose some acres to corn? I know we're talking about in the Midwest, maybe beans or even wheat losing some acres to corn. There's potential for places like Texas and the Southeast to give up a little bit of cotton ground to corn, with cotton futures being as weak as they have been recently. But that maybe isn't going to be a big shift away in acres, because in a lot of those places they grow cotton because that's the crop that does best, or may be the only thing that really reliably produces in those areas.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that, Jake. Jake, real quick, did you climb a mountain today?
I climbed a mountain.
That's fantastic.
Did you climb one?
Oh, yeah. I climbed a mountain. Did Yonkman climb a mountain?
I believe he did, and we all got a little bit of sunburn. Dangerous place, this Phoenix, Arizona.
That's exactly right. It was a good climb. All right, good deal. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim. Well, a big thanks to Phil, Ryan, and Jake for being on the show. A huge thanks to all the farmers down here in Arizona for having us at their annual meeting. We'd also like to thank Paige and the EverAg Insights crew, especially for her production magic as we deal with the sounds of wind and airplanes overhead. And thank you to the viewers for watching the grain feed. Contact information is on the screen. We greatly appreciate your feedback. That's all for today. From Arizona, we will see you next time on the grain feed.